Okay, so I think I'll split my background. My background as a Krav Maga practitioner on one side, and then my professional activities on the other.
Sure.
Actually, the story is about how I came to meet Krav and how I actually met you. They're quite funny.
Yeah.
Well, first, yeah, it always started when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
The teachers were threatening to expel me from the school. I was one of those super nanny cases. I was one of those horrible childs. The school actually called my parents over, and they wanted to that I started looking for a shrink or a psychiatrist. They actually said that I wouldn't learn how to read and to write. I wouldn't even be able to learn how to read and to write. So they had absolutely zero expectations for me at that point.
Wow.
And my parents, they were very shocked, and they say, come on, this is a 5-year-old kid. And, how can I say that he needs a psychiatrist and is not going to learn, just give him time. And the school was very pushy. So when my parents confronted the director of the school, in the end they actually said, okay, so see if you at least put him in a martial arts or something to see if he can spend some energy.
Wow.
So the day I completed the 5 years, my mother actually put me in judo, and so my martial artist career started. So I stayed. I fought judo for 12 years. I was national champion. I classified for the Pan American Games, but then there was a lot of politics involved and corruption and all these things. So the place I used to practice went out of the Brazilian Federation. I couldn't compete on the Pan American Games. So that was a big deception, a big disappointment for me at the time. I was around 16, 17. I was also going to university. So I started questioning and ended up giving up practicing judo and quit.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's where Krav Maga comes in.
There we go.
So, yeah, so it was quite interesting. When I was, I don't know, 16, 15 or so, my best friend, I was at his house, and his brother is a private pilot. So at the time, he was actually a co-pilot of a very rich man, and he used to fly this millionaire all over with his private jet. So I went to sleep at my friend's house. We slept there. The next day, his brother comes back from a trip, and he's all excited and said, "Oh my God, you guys won't believe what happened." He's like, "What? No, we took a flight yesterday from Rio, and we're supposed to come back in the afternoon, but the guy decided to stay in Rio. So he said, okay, you guys sleep here and go back to your city early in the morning." So he and the pilot, so the co-pilot and the pilot, decided to go for a walk on the streets of Rio in the night. They are in Copacabana, one of the Rio's main beach, walking in the night. And suddenly a guy comes and pull up a gun and say, "Give me your wallet, give me your phones, everything." And he says that he actually turns to the side to pick up the wallet from his back pocket, and he just hears this blah, 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 boom. He turns around, and the guy's on the floor with his hand twisted, as what Joe in the studio will know as a cavalier on the floor. The guy was holding the assailant's gun in his hand. So he gave the guy a thrashing and then said, okay, you run here in a straight line until I can't see you. So the guy started running like crazy. He walked, got the bullets out of the gun, chucked in the gutter, walked a few blocks more, chuck the gun in another gutter.
Wow.
And he was like, oh my God, are you crazy? The guy could have shot us and you know, we could be dead by now. You don't react to this kind of robbery and this and that. Except that the pilot was Israeli and he was former special forces.
Wow.
So he was like, no, this, you know, the Israelis are like, no, right? How they say it. They were like, no, that was never a possibility.
Wow.
I practiced Krav Maga my whole life, and I was a self-defense instructor at the special forces and this and that. You were always safe, never a problem. So he came and told us this story that stayed in my mind. I was like, oh, how cool. And then he explained a little bit how was Krav Maga, how he uses movement, how it's simple. But I had no idea what he was talking about at that time.
Wow.
So a couple of years later, then I started going to the university, and I stopped judo and started going to the university, and I said, okay, I've been training for so long, I need to practice something. I can't live without martial arts.
Right.
But I was too young. I went to university very young, so I couldn't drive by myself. The legal age for driving in Brazil was 18 years old. So I used to get a ride with some friends of mine. And they said, okay, you can take a ride with us. But after the uni, we actually go to the gym. And so if you don't mind waiting at the gym until we work out a little bit, I can drop you home. I said, okay, great. I'll go and I'll see, maybe I'll start doing some martial arts. They have capoeira, which is the Brazilian fighting, dancing / fighting. Maybe I start doing some Kung Fu, I don't know. So I went there and the guy from the gym said, actually we have this new martial art here. And the guy is actually there because it's so new, he still haven't any students yet. Well, why don't you go there in the dojo and talk to him? So I went there, the guy explained and I still didn't understand. So he gave me a rubber knife, told me to attack him. I flew to one side to the other, then he took this rubber gun and said, okay, put it in my head. This kind of gave me a thrash. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I think this has some potential. And then I started practicing and drinking, and then the penny dropped. I was like, oh, that was that martial art. And it's funny because because at the time both my friend's brother and my friend were all like, oh, we're going to practice this, we're going to do this and stuff, and they actually never did. And I was like, yeah, all right. And I started practicing.
Excellent.
Yeah. So then the years went by. I went to the UK to do my PhD. And Joe is saying about the day I went to the gym, but I don't know if you remember, Joe, it was actually a bit earlier. I got to the UK and started researching about Krav Maga. It's very different in the UK because in Brazil we have basically one guy who has this self-claimed monopoly over Krav Maga.
I know you have more.
And when you go to, sorry?
I said that there are more now, but let's not go into the details there.
Yeah. But at the time, at least, he was the only one. Yeah. And anyway, so I got to UK to have so many different clubs and stuff. And I was really afraid about which club to join. I mean, I've seen the Krav Maga in the US and how in a lot of places actually became more like a fit exercise than actually fighting and stuff.
Yeah.
But one day I was walking down Holborn and I see a guy with walking by with a Krav Maga t-shirt. So I actually run and chase the guy and I say, okay, you practice Krav Maga? I'm thinking of joining. Where do you practice? And he says, no, I'm actually an instructor. was
Wow.
like, oh, really? Yeah, no, I'm actually going down there to teach. Why don't you come and join us? And then we start talking, and oh, yeah, where are you from? I'm from Brazil. I was like, what? So why are we talking in English anyways? Then,
All right. It wasn't that we goes from Trafalgar Square to the BBC house there. It was on that street, wasn't it? I don't even remember the name.
Yes, it was almost at BBC House.
Oh, I understand. I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I look it up, and Joe was the highest grade in the UK at the time, and had all this experience.
I was the one available.
Like,
No,
okay,
don't go there. Don't go there. Yeah, all right. Wow, that was back in, when was that? How long ago was that?
2006, 2007.
Wow.
2006, I think.
Yeah, when we started the club right at the beginning, yeah. First year, I think it was.
Yeah. So that's basically my story of Krav, how I come to practice, and how I come to meet Joe and the institute.
Fantastic. So now we need to drag you to Israel one of these days to train with us. I know you've been there many times, but not to train Krav Maga. You've been there doing something else. But let me change now the subject. We know your martial art background. What about now you got a degree in initial degree, a master's, and then a PhD. Your first degree was law, is that correct? You're a lawyer?
Yeah, I actually have a dual background. I did 2 undergraduations. I did one in law and another one in international relations.
Oh my God.
Then I have a LLM in international law. And then I moved to the UK and I did my PhD at the LSE in international relations.
Wow.
So,
but you specialize in what, terrorism, counter-terrorism, and all that. Because I tried reading the title. I tried to read the title of your dissertation at the end of your PhD, and the title was so long that I got lost. That was just the title, never mind the rest of it.
Yeah, but basically I work with international security and strategic studies. So I work a lot of conflicts. I've been increasingly working with, interestingly enough, with money laundering and financing of terrorism, transnational organized crime. But my big specialty is actually jihadist terrorism. Wow. So my PhD was on terrorism, and I've been doing a lot of work on this subject, which is also a very interesting story as well. I mean, in the UK, it's okay when I say that I do terrorism, everybody understands, they know what I'm talking about. It's not something out of the ordinary, but when it comes to Brazil and you say that you study terrorism, it's a huge issue, because everybody say, oh, we're so far away from terrorism, there is no terrorism in Brazil, and you know, our problem is organized crime, and so on and so forth.
I have no idea.
And actually when I moved back from the UK, I said, okay, I'll probably have to go back to international law and other things. I will have no work here on terrorism.
Wow.
But the truth is, I've been having so much work on terrorism that I barely do anything else. So I've been working with the federal police, giving courses for Bop and Gachi. I don't know if you guys have seen
the Men in Black. Those guys, the movie.
Elite Squad, yeah.
Elite Squad. If you haven't seen it, there's homework. Elite Squad 1 and 2. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you also teach at university. You are the dean of a university. You teach. You're the man that does 1,000 things, huh? Writing books and paperwork and stuff. Wow. And
I write a lot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry?
Go on.
No, I write a lot about the subject, about the terrorism. So I also teach at the university. I've been helping some work, sometimes with government, private companies, works around the area of intelligence, defense. And I also have this position as the Dean of Postgraduate Studies. So I also help to coordinate the academic
Right.
courses, the post-graduation courses.
Wow. With I mean, of course, let's put a line between.
So that's basically.
Yeah, let's draw a line between before Corona and after Corona. So did Corona kill all the terrorists also, or no, the terrorists are still out there planning something? And what's going to happen to the planet after Corona? Because now we're talking about something we don't even know exactly where we're going. Everything is very uncertain, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the million-dollar question. And actually, I've been discussing a lot about the impact of coronavirus, both on organized crime and terrorism. And you actually do have some very interesting things going on. So if we think about, let's talk first about organized crime. That's maybe the subject closer to you guys,
Yeah.
to your everyday life. And actually, you all that are watching, if you guys have any questions or want to discuss any particular subject, but feel free to ask, okay, and interrupt me.
No worries. No.
So it's very interesting. The coronavirus has been impacting organized crime as well. So you have the decreased mobility. So a lot of the smuggling drugs have been really affected. So the drug dealers, they can't find the chemical components, the precursors to make drugs, for example. They're having more problem moving smuggled equipment and materials and so on and so forth. But at the same time, these guys are really fast in adapt to the changes in the environment. And we actually have been seeing a real pandemic in fraud. Cybercrime has been increasing a lot. So they're taking advantage of facts that people are anxious and afraid. They're taking advantage of the fact that people are staying more at home, using more the computers. So all this has been explored by organized crime. So they've been selling fake medical products. The Interpol this week just busted a major organized crime that was selling fake goods over 90 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, they had a very big fraud as well, really interesting. They set up a fake company to sell a large quantities of masks because they know that the governments were looking for a large quantity of face masks. So this was set in Spain. So the government calls this company, it has a website, looks legit, has all the history background. The company says, okay, we don't have this equipment. So they refer to another company in Ireland. The Ireland goes and say, yeah, we sell for them, but we don't have the equipment as well. And the same thing, the company has a website, has board of director, registered everything. And then say, okay, we have this other company in Holland that might have the masks. All these two companies, both the one in Spain and the Ireland, they were completely fake and set up by the criminals. But here's the trick, and just to show you guys how creative these guys can be. The company in Holland was actually a real legit company. So what they did is that they hacked the company's website and took control over it. And they made the sell like they were the legit company. They got the money and then they disappeared.
Wow, this is some like Ocean 11 stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. So just to show how sophisticated these guys can be. Yeah. And we also have seen a rise in non-sophisticated crimes as well. I mean, and I know this has been happening in the UK as well. This has happened here in Brazil, specifically in my city as well. I already had some reports about that. Criminals who would basically wear clothes like they were healthy agents. So they will have the masks, full clothes on, so they can't be recognized. They're wearing all the face masks. they either will get the name of someone from your family and say that the person got coronavirus and they need to go in and check, or they're saying that they're doing a health inspection, or that a neighbor of yours has the coronavirus and they need to get in to make the test, and then they will rob and clean up the place.
Wow, those guys are ninja level and stuff, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So to one side, the organized activity have been heavily impacted, but on the other hand, they are also taking advantage of the situation.
Wow.
Yeah, we really do live in science fiction.
Yeah, we're in funny times now. It's stuff that if anyone would have seen a movie a few months ago, and have all this stuff that is happening now, they will say, "Oh, that was just a movie. It's fiction. It's never going to happen." But now here we are living the movie. Wow. And how do you see? I mean, when it comes to with the terrorism, is always the case. Is, as I say, is one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So there's always both sides of the story. You're putting me against the wall. I decided to punch you, and you call me the terrorist, and all of a sudden, the newspapers are talking about me in a very bad way. So how you see, is this also changing around the world, that people are using a lot of media? Because I know that as politicians will have, or parties will have media companies advertising, make them look like angels. I'm sure you're going to have the other side too, doing exactly the same thing.
Both with organized crime and terrorism. Here's the internet connection is unstable. You guys are hearing me okay?
Yeah. It froze a little bit, but now we can hear.
Okay. So I've seen both organized crime. This has been happening especially in Brazil and Mexico and a lot in Latin America, where the groups are actually enforcing lockdowns, and they're distributing face masks and medicine, especially in places where the state can't reach. So they go to slums, they go to very poor area. So we have, for example, the PCC, which is one of the biggest Brazilian organized crimes groups, and also militias in Rio de Janeiro. They're going and they are saying that who doesn't wash the hands, who doesn't use face mask, who doesn't respect the lockdown will be killed, basically.
Wow.
But at the same time, for the local population, they are the guys who are giving money. So they are saying, okay, you cannot open your business, but here is money for you to stay at home. Okay, the government's not giving you help, but here's some masks, here's some money. So they are seen as doing all the actions to prevent the virus. So
they're playing the old guerrilla way of going to the farmer and saying, hey, we're going to give you a doctor, we're going to give you a teacher, we're going to give you the means. So now you look after us, and then
hearts and mind. Yeah, hearts and minds. So they're really going for increase their legitimacy and win their hearts.
Wow.
And in case of terrorism, we've seen this. Hamas is doing the same thing. Hezbollah is doing the same thing. The Taliban is doing the same thing. Interestingly enough, Al Qaeda is also doing the same thing. And many groups are taking advantage of this situation to try to increase their legitimacy.
Wow. So there's a question here. As part of your research, have you looked at the activity of Hezbollah in Latin America and the involvement in a drug trade? Or can you tell us more, not just Hezbollah, but any other international group that might want a slice of the very lucrative market, which is the Brazilian one?
Yeah, that's a very, we could be here now for hours now.
Right, order lunch and we can see.
No, it's a great question. It's actually a great question. So like I said, so when I went back from the UK to Brazil, I said, I mean, Brazil and terrorism, what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then as I started working closer to the police, intelligence services, and start doing more research, we actually have a lot of things going on here. The problem is that when we talk about terrorism, most people think only about terrorist attacks. But if you think about terrorism attacks, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just one small part in what we call the terrorist cycle. You have a series of activities that are rational, they're thought of, they're planned, that happens before. So you have recruiting, you have the financing, you have the organization. And then you have what we call the operational cycle, which is when they will plan the attack. So they will do training, they will acquire equipments, they will do dry tests, dry runs, and then they will do the attack. And after the attack, you also have a lot of things that are going on afterwards. So the surviving terrorists will try to evade police and escape. The terrorist group will go to the internet and the means of communications and explore what happened, and so on and so forth.
Wow.
And when we start digging, you actually have a lot of recruiting going on in Latin America and Brazil. And you also have a lot of the financing of terrorists going on here. So we actually have had quite a few cases. So just to speak a few ones, we had the first big one was called Operation Hashtag, where they end up arresting some teenagers that were planning to join the Islamic State and doing terrorist attacks during the World Cup. They were planning things like, poison the Rio water reservoirs, to attack the São Paulo Pride Parade.
Wow.
We also had more recently another case linked to the Islamic State as well, in an operation called Attila, in which it's very interesting because the organization started from inside the prisons from Brazil. So the two leaders were in two different prisons. So that shows how the whole thing about radicalization in prisons is a big issue, and Brazil is not prepared for that.
Wow.
We had a very interesting case in São Paulo about the financing of terrorists. This is actually very, very interesting. This group wanted to transfer money to the Islamic States and to other groups in Lebanon. So what they did to avoid the detection of the authorities is that the guys would buy things on the credit card, and then they would pay the bill twice. So then they would travel to Lebanon. They would call the credit card company and say, look, I have made a mistake, and then I actually paid twice. So the company said, okay, no problem. They will put the credit on the credit card. Right. So then they would go to the shops, they would buy goods that are high value. They would buy computers, TVs, even cars, and then they would sell and pocket the money. So why they would do this? Because basically they would transfer the money. It's a form to transfer the money without doing the money transfer. And then this can't be detected. So it was actually a very, very creative way. And this was all happening starting from São Paulo.
Wow.
Yeah, and then of course we come to the
Brazilian creative mind operating all the time, eh?
All the time. The famous Brazilian jeitinho, right?
Yeah, the Brazilian ways of doing things, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, of course, we come to the Hezbollah issue. This is a very thorny issue in Brazil. First of all, for political reasons, Hezbollah is not considered a terrorist organization in Brazil. So a lot of the things and activities that Hezbollah does in Brazil goes under the radar. Brazil also has a very serious issue about recognizing that it has terrorism activities in its territory. This happened especially because the previous government, a lot of people in the high administration, they were actually accused of being terrorists during the dictatorships in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So there is a lot of political resistance to calling anyone a terrorist.
Well.
And yeah, and there is a lot of talk going on. Note that this is nothing official, nothing confirmed, but increasingly talks about how Hezbollah is actually making alliances with PCC, the biggest Brazilian organized crime. And they are actually operating together in drug dealings, and PCC is helping the Hezbollah to take drugs from the Latin America to Lebanon. And in exchange, they are giving information, operational information on, for example, the use of explosives.
Right. Wow.
So, yeah, one source, for example, here in Brazil, it's very common to have, they would go to ATMs and they will set up explosive charts, explode the ATMs and pick it up the money.
Yeah.
The problem is that these are very delicate operations, because if you put too much explosives, you will damage the bills, because the bills are basically paper and they will burn. And suddenly, after there was a rumor that there was an exchange between these two groups, that the PCC started protecting the Hezbollah people who were in Brazilian jails. Very suddenly, these rumors start happening. Suddenly, they become the PCC, the Brazilian organized crime, became really proficient in setting up these explosive charges to the right amount in the right way.
Wow.
And a lot of people from
online
the,
learning, eh?
Yeah, no, but they said this was not online learning. It was actually the Hezbollah
Training people,
teaching them, training them. So there's a lot of stuff going on, increasingly more and more coming out. And I think, I know there are a lot of investigations coming out, even though there is this resistance about speaking about anything about Hezbollah in Brazil. I think we will start seeing more and more things very soon.
How interesting is that? Because there's one thing here. Help me out on this one here. Might be my question, might be someone else's question. But when we talk about Hezbollah, Hamas, and how many other groups there are in the Middle East, this is nothing to do. There's no connection with the religious side of it. There's no connection. Those guys they happen to be there. They happen to be some level religious, but it's more the money side is more that they want control. They want to be in charge and things like that. Is that correct?
That's also very complex, very interesting question as well. Again, I can split it in two parts. The money part that you mentioned and the religion part. So about the religion part, one of the things, almost all public lectures I give, especially for non-specialized audiences, I almost always start with this distinction that terror is completely different from religion.
Right.
There's nothing to do with Islam. So we have to remember a few things. So first, what we see is that these groups, they will use from religious signs, religious languages, religious rituals, and they will appropriate from them and use them for political purposes.
Okay. So
they use this to advance a very specific view of this religion and view of the world, to present an idea of a better world, how it would be within this religion, but as a form to create legitimacy for the group. But this is what we call the political use of the religion. It's not religion itself. There's nothing to do with religion. Actually, it's quite interesting that when we start looking at how things works and the cases that we have, the religion actually usually works against the recruiting of terrorists. So we have a very, very interesting case that happened in the UK, in London actually. Two brothers. This is a very famous case because MI5 had its mind blown over it, and it changed the way it started looking into these things. So the elder brother was a very religious Salafi Practitioner. So he was very vocal against the UK and the United States and the Muslim world, very vocal against Islam, against the Western interference in Islam, and used to go to the mosques and everything. So he used to study the religion and to give discourse and all that. Meanwhile, his younger brother was basically a playboy. He used to have many different girlfriends at the same time. He used light drugs. He was involved in light crimes. He used to drink, which is forbidden by the religion and everything. So the elder brother actually got on the MI5 radar, and they started monitoring him because they were convinced that he was going to perpetrate an attack in London. And then suddenly what happened is that the younger brother was preparing this attack.
Wow.
And one day, almost a few hours before he was planning to go out and do the attack, he actually called his brother and said, look, I admire your religion. All this thing of me being a playboy and stuff is all make me thinking about the religion. I'm going to prove that I'm a good Muslim, and I am going to do this attack. So this went completely under the radar of the authorities because they were focusing on the elder brother. And then the elder brother actually called MI5, and he gave his younger brother a call.
Wow.
And yeah, and then the authorities were completely aghast. They were like, why did you do this? You know, if you're so against the, you know, the
system,
the
ways.
Yeah. And I said, no, it's because I study the religion. You know, I am a fundamentalist, but I know the religion, and I know there is nothing in the religion that allows the death of innocent people.
Wow, fantastic.
This is not what is being a good Muslim. So this shows how sometimes actually the people who understand the religion, they are not, they don't fall for this kind of reading political use. So it's very interesting, this connection between the religion and terrorism. And also, we need to remember that a lot of terrorist attacks and terrorists that are not religious at all. So if you get the case of Breivik in Norway, for example, and this whole thing, the biggest threat that we see in the Western world is actually white supremacist terrorists and not actually Islamist terrorists. So it's
phenomenal stuff, because there's a lot of thing in the media where when someone from that side will do something, he's a terrorist, there's religion, there's this, there's that. When a white kid somewhere in Norway kills a bunch of people, oh, he had some mental health issues, you know, slap on the back of the hand, go to jail, forget about him. There's a lot of that also, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Well, and you also asked about the question of the money. So this is another phenomenon we've been seeing a lot, and that's one of the reasons why I've been increasingly work with the financing of terrorism and organized crime. Is what we call the terror crime nexus. Right. So we've seen some of the organized crime start adopting tactics that terrorist groups use in their structuring, the way that they finance. And if you get to places like Mexico and Brazil, even in the form of the attacks that they do. And on the other hand, we see groups, terrorist groups that become much more involved with organized crime than previously. And they start the financing, and they set up really almost like a whole company, a whole conglomerate of companies and network to finance their activities. And a lot of this goes through crime.
So in terms of fighting all this, I mean, is there any measures or anything that the government can do that? Because the terrorists are the ones that can get things going very quick, very fast, adapt to the thing. And when you talk about government, sometimes it takes forever because they're more interested on the political side. They want to get reelected in 4 years. And let's leave someone else to do this job later. I'm more interested in the money for the next 4 years. So how, what I see is that the government is the guy opening the front door, realized they stole everything in the house, and now he needs to put a new lock on the door. That's pretty much it, you know. But the bad guy's already gone. the ideas are flowing. They have more plans for the future. It's how you see it when it comes to fighting terrorism and all that.
Yeah, in Brazil is what we call the catching mouse game, right? Because the mouse is always find different ways and different routes to run away. So it's in a sense most of the public policies, they are reactive, and it's a problem because terrorists are so creative. So you have many historical cases that you never thought. We had the Rainbow Warrior. We never thought the terrorists would actually attack a vessel in the sea. And then you have 9/11. We never thought that you could just get the plane and throw up. So there is a lot of that, yes. But if you think about, this is also true for the organized crime, right? I mean, fraud always exists, but they become more sophisticated. Just think about this operation that I told you. So it's always this kind. There are some work with preventive measures. In the UK, for example, you have the prevent policies and others. But their efficiency has been somewhat limited. And there is a lot of discussion again about the impact of coronavirus over this.
Right.
This is also another interesting. So first, you have less people on the streets, so it's more difficult to monitor people who are becoming radicalized. People spend more time on the internet. They have more access to this kind of material. So you have a lot of speculation if that will actually increase the online recruiting by terrorist groups during the coronavirus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when we are here thinking that we are having our freedom taken because we need to sit at home to prevent the spread of a disease, people are taking this to another completely different level. So there are different levels where people can see things and do things in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, and even between the groups, I mean, it's very interesting. If you get the Islamic State communications over this month, it's saying that coronavirus are actually revenge from God against infidels. But the way they're portraying is basically how tiny warriors are bringing out giants like the United States to its knees. So they're comparing the tiny size of the virus, how the United States is all powerful and stuff, and God is basically showing that they can be defeated by very small and tiny. They are also saying they're giving health tips. So for example, don't travel to Europe, wash your hands, stay home. But they're also saying that it's the great time to increase the attacks, especially lone wolf attacks. They're saying that there are less people on the streets, so the policemen and the police forces are more exposed, making them especially good targets.
Wow.
For terrorist attacks. And
it's insane.
Actually, yeah, I don't know if you guys saw, but this last week, a guy was arrested in the United States in Michigan, where he was trying to explode a hospital that was treating coronavirus.
Oh no!
Because he tested positive. And yeah, so he tested positive and said, okay, instead of dying in a hospital, I want to go to the hospital and take everybody with me.
Jeez, this is killing the virus thing on another level, huh?
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you look at Al-Qaeda's communications over this period, it's completely different. They are actually working that within that logic of increase their legitimacy. So they're saying, stay home. It's a time to think about Islam. It's a time to think about our ideology, to rethink your life, to see what are going to be the next steps. So it's a time for introspection.
Wow.
The virus also affect us. And it's very interesting how you can have completely different views and narratives over the phenomenon.
And of course, a lot of this is under the radar. It's not on the news, therefore people don't know, because this is all the communication. But I'm sure you guys have different channels where you can tap in and like, I'm not saying that Israelis are listening to everybody on WhatsApp. Hello. But as we know, I was talking to some of the guys in Israel last week, and then they were saying, look, they could tell us exactly where people are going. So they are voting this now with the parliament to avoid this becoming a norm, because otherwise it will be the big brother state. So there is also all these apps that we keep downloading, making funny faces, but by behind the scenes, we don't even know what these apps are all about. Perhaps someone is there collecting data. I still remember the one, the Pokemon one. People used to walk around taking pictures inside the houses and buildings and all that. I still think that was a way of creating a 3D map from the outside and from the inside of every single building on the planet, because every kid will do that. And all of a sudden now someone is collecting all this information. But then again, it's just conspiracy theory here. Maybe yes, maybe no. Huh? So what do you think about it?
Yeah, well, the terrorists usually they are very linked to technology. So we know that being used, for example, Google Earth to plan attacks. We have what we call OSINT, which is open source intelligence. It's amazing what you can find on the internet if you know how to look and how to do. But there is also, just to tap in another subject that you touched upon, that is the question of the conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
Is also a very interesting aspect, because the number of conspiracy theories are going up with the coronavirus. I don't know if people have more time to stay at home and think about these things.
For sure, yeah.
To the point that, I don't know if you guys saw, but the US government actually released the UFOs footages because
Yes.
the conspiracies were getting out of hand.
I read this when Joe said that we are living a crazy time when the US government released footage of UFOs and people just don't care about it because we have so many other things to think about now.
Yeah, I mean, think about 2020. It started with US-Iran war, that it moved to the pandemic, then the oil barrel became negative. So if you take a oil barrel, they would give you $32 and all this. It's like a meme, the best meme I've seen about 2020 that says written by Stephen King and directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, and this is only April, May still. We're even not in June yet.
Yeah.
What happened the rest of the year, man? Wow.
Yeah. But anyways, but the conspiracy theories are actually playing a role in the white supremacist terrorism as well. It's increasing the narratives and the calls for attack, because they're blaming on the government failure to control, or they're saying that this is a plan to screw the American economy or the world economy. Also, this whole thing about being a deliberate biological weapon from China. So it also has a big impact. We've seen a lot of narrative about this on the white supremacist groups, extremist groups.
Wow. Did you have the chance to watch this interview with a guy called David Icke, I think, is an English writer. He talks about conspiracies, and he was talking about COVID-19 being something that some higher power using to control, and the G5, the what's it called, the 5G, sorry, not the G5, the 5G being something that might cause the virus or some kind of cancer in people. So there's a lot of that stuff going on there, even to the point where the YouTube took his interview down and demonetized the channel. Had more than 1 million people subscribed to that channel. So what do you guys think about all this craziness?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the interview, but the big issue is that they will get these narratives and they will explore to try to create legitimacy or to use ideologically to increase recruiting or to incentivize terrorist attacks. So that's the great danger of this kind of narrative, because they play into this constant state of paranoia and fear, and this even this somewhat surreal moment that we live. I mean, if we think about it, a great part of the management of this crisis has to do with basically giving meaning to what's happening. We don't even understand, because we're calling upon science. Science is supposed to have an answer, but when we see science itself, it's saying, some scientists say something, some scientists say, no, you should use home mask, no, you shouldn't use home mask, no, this kind of medicine is good. So we can't, even science can't make things. So these generate a lot of anxiety. It, it, it also raises questions about the idea of science itself. So these kinds of meta narratives using religion, using, occultism, all kinds of special power, conspiracy, everything. It echoes more. It becomes like an amplifying chamber and end up falling more ears.
How crazy is that? Just change a little bit. So from changing the subject a little bit, we've been we're almost towards the end of it, but I just want to touch one thing. The fact that the United Kingdom trying to, or at least not try, the United Kingdom left the European Union. We're not even talking about the Brexit anymore, which is quite entertaining. From different layers, what you can actually see that from you have the right glasses to understand this, to see it. The fact that people were coming from, all the way from Africa through the channels, Italy, Greece, having paperworks given, right? So you leave Italy, you leave Greece, you can move to Germany, to I don't know, France or England or United Kingdom as a whole. Do you think that played any part on the UK saying, look, we would like to take power back, we would like to control our borders because we don't want to see people coming here, and later on introduce the ideologies and turn this into I don't know, another Islamic state? Is anything regarding that in your understanding?
Well, I don't want to get into UK domestic politics.
Please.
No, but what I can say is, from the pro-Brexit scores, they certainly use this argument. So I've seen they argue not only the question of migrant work, but also the question of the ideology as well, to spread. And this is actually a quite old fight between, for example, the UK counter-terrorist culture and France and Germany. So the continental counter-terrorist culture, they always blame the UK for being too lenient with ideas, with people, for being too cosmopolitan. And when the London attacks happened and other ones, of course, they didn't say explicitly, but they kind of said in between the lines, like, look, that's what you get for being so
nice.
Except that the attacks end up happening also in Paris, in Nice, in Germany, and everywhere. And they saw that their approach was also wrong and also problematic. I think diversity is a great thing. So I actually think that it's a pity that the UK is closing down and its policies and ideologies. I think that's
okay.
what I can say.
There's a question regarding terrorist groups constantly look for new ways of attacking their targets. Do you see any new emerging trends in the methods, like people are using drones now? Like there was this attempt assassination, one of the South Americans president, I think it was, isn't it, a few years back, where they had a drone flying with half a kilo of TNT there and missing the target. So do you see anything like that happening?
Yeah, this is very group specific. It depends. We're talking about what we call the professionals and non-professional terrorists. There's been a tendency in the few last years of going for more simple attacks. So what we call vehicular ramming, which is just take the car and bury, or knife attacks, stick attacks, and that's where Krav can be a great help as well. We've seen on the what we call the professional sides, on the financing, there's this whole discussion about the use of cryptocurrencies to finance, but they have been still quite limited. There's very few attempts, and the amount of money is still not very much. They've been being very creative in the use of games as well. So both games like Second Life, where you have Linden dollars that you can change back, what we call conversible virtual currency.
Okay.
But also non-convertible. So you have like Fortnite, we have in case where the guy set up an avatar and then he sells the avatar to finance a cause.
Wow.
Now you guys need to understand that, especially, you know, a terrorist attack is quite cheap, right? So that's the problem. The organizations, the terrorist organizations as a group, they involve a lot of money, but the small cells and terrorists, they can be financed really cheaply. We had cases in Europe where a kid actually asked the mom money to buy a laptop, and another one where the kid basically asked the mother money to go on an excursion at school, and then he used this money to join the Islamic State in Syria.
Wow. That's
Yeah, but an interesting aspect has been the use of drones, like you said. But the interesting thing is that they're studying and increasingly use the drone not only to do an attack, which would be like put explosives or radioactive matters in a drone and put it there, but also to do what we call disruptive attacks. So for example, you fly the drone inside a high tension power generator, for example. That
we had one at the airport, at Gatwick Airport last year. They had to close the airport for, I don't know, days or hours or whatever there was. So it was expensive.
Yeah. Yes, that's what they call it. They want to cause disruption. So,
Right.
so this has been a tendency. It's not just to make an attack with explosive with the drones, but you can use it to gather intelligence on the movement of the troops. You can do videos for recruiting, and especially this what's called disruptive attacks. This has been a great tendency. Yes.
Wow. So interesting. Huh? Yeah, it's a tricky world, but what I keep telling everybody, we need to focus in certain things. Avoid checking the media every 20 minutes, because the more you look at it, the more you will see. As they said, it's like internet. You start searching for a recipe for bread, and 3 hours later you're watching Fauda series 3 because you don't even know why you started on the internet. So with media is no different. And then of course people trying to put stuff in your head and your mind, and it's tricky. So my advice to everybody that, you know, in the recent days is to focus on one thing, keep focusing in improving yourself, keep focusing in, you know, getting fit and stronger, because when this is over, you know, it's you that's going to have to go out there and find work and maybe change completely your line of work and do something completely different. But you need to be, as I say, with a healthy mind and a healthy body.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my daughter screaming out. Sorry. She's back.
It's all right.
So yeah, so my question is, people don't know, but you and your wife is as qualified as you are pretty much. She's also a PhD and in the same area with a bit of a degree in history and master's in history and so on. But you guys work together. How does that work? I mean, you guys being in the same house with a 2-year-old kid. So dealing with terrorism is a very high topic in your house, I guess, huh?
Yeah, that's something that our friends always tease us. You know, say, what would you guys discuss on Friday night? You know, the newest,
yeah, the latest
bomb model, and yeah, and we also think. I mean, when my wife was pregnant, she worked until she taught until almost the end. We start following every week what's going on with the little baby inside her belly, right? And then you say, oh, now the baby starts hearing things from the outside. And she's like, great. So the baby's forms already having lectures about suicide bombing. And
can you imagine? The baby's got a degree already when it comes out. Off you go, my daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually call her our little terrorist.
And how do you? How do you guys put together all this? I mean, you work a little bit, she works a little bit, and someone looks after the kid. How do you write a book about things like that? Because I can barely text sometimes. My daughter takes over. So by writing a book, having a small kid,
it's been a big challenge. I mean, first of the little kid, she's in an age that we can't leave her alone for a second. Especially now that she's climbing, pushing, getting everywhere. And, you know, as martial arts, I have swords, knives, and stuff put away. But she finds a way to find them. So we can't leave her alone. We can't explain her what's happening as well. She still doesn't speak, doesn't have the
language.
We also have a big dog in the house. which also goes crazy for being inside so much and with everybody. So it's very difficult to try to keep a routine, but we've been trying. I think that's we've been concentrating trying to keep a routine, especially for the baby.
Wow.
So that she has a routine and hours to do stuff. But to conciliate with work is quite hard. So basically, I have been working in ungodly hours between usually 6 a.m. and 7:30, because I need not only for the baby to be sleeping, but also my wife.
Wow.
Because when she's awake, either we are working on something together, or we, you know, I have to help her doing the cleaning of the house, and clothes and everything. So it's been a huge challenge, but we've been juggling. So we try to make rotas, so we stay in the baby in the morning, and then I can work in the afternoon, and the other way around, and things like that. So we try to.
Well,
yeah,
as they say, you have to adapt and overcome. Yeah, that's some motto
yes.
of the special force group, that is. But that's pretty much that it. But listen,
Yeah.
let me thank you very much. I know we could talk for another 5 hours about different subjects for sure, but we don't have the time. I'm sure you're a busy man, and you need to go back to the family. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time. I appreciate your honesty talking to us in a way that.
No, it's my pleasure and my honor. If anyone from the audience also have a question, maybe I can just answer one or two more before I go. If not.
No, they ask you. Otherwise, they will start asking questions about stuff of Krav Maga even. So don't give them too many choices, okay?
Okay.
I will send you the questions later if there's anything specific there, because I also need to set up my little studio behind me here on my living room to teach a class at 7 p.m. today. So guys, thanks for watching. We have people from Germany watching here. We have guys from Italy. We have guys from Scotland. We had guys from the UK. It's a bit of a mix between everything and everybody here. So Tubo is sending his regards, and now he says, now I know why he could jump so high back in the day, because he trained judo for so many years. So and we have Matt Fox. Remember Matt Fox, the police officer?
Yeah.
So he also sent a message on the I think it was Instagram, saying, oh, okay, now I know Jorge, because he remembered you. So take it easy. Have a good one. Say hello to the family, and I will talk to you next time.
All right. So you guys stay safe as well, and good practice for you guys. Thank you so much for the invitation. I hope you guys have enjoyed. And
oh, it was fantastic. And I'm going to send the link to people that could not watch that. But anyway, cheers. Thank you.